Let's bring in Pentagon spokeswoman Sabrina Singh. Great to have you again. Sabrina, thanks for being here. So Iran, top of mind, right? The Wall Street Journal writing this. So much for the embargo on Iran's missiles. The United States lets sanctions expire as Tehran's proxies fire away at Israeli and American targets. Going on to also say, here's the contradiction of current U.S.-Iran policy in a nutshell. While the Pentagon deploys a THAAD missile defense system to the Middle East to protect U.S. bases from the volley of missiles fired by Iranian proxies, the Biden administration has let the international embargo on Iran's missile program lapse, which basically means the cap has been lifted. Iran can now send missiles anywhere that it wants, including to these proxies who are possibly going to widen this war. Describe for us the level of concern the Pentagon has about that.
Thanks, Dana, so much for having me on today. This is exactly what we're concerned about. We are concerned about other actors, particularly Iran, looking for a way to widen this conflict beyond Israel. And so our biggest concern is messaging both privately and publicly to other actors who want to take advantage of this conflict. Don't. And that's why you saw at the direction of the president, the secretary moved two carrier strike groups into the region to bolster our deterrence, but to also protect our U.S. forces. And we are seeing an uptick in attacks on our U.S. forces, both in Iraq and Syria. And so that's why you're seeing, as you mentioned, the THAAD and the Patriot batteries going towards the region to help bolster our presence, but also to help reinforce security concerns and security measures for our U.S. forces on the ground there.
There was a lot to track, as you well know. Vladimir Putin this week was in Beijing. Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, was in Tehran. Wow, and the list goes on. Here's how the Hill characterizes the current situation. The five-front war that the U.S. is unprepared to fight. Since World War II, it's impossible to recall any time when the United States confronted as many testing issues and crises as today. There is no manual or book in existence on how to manage a five-front war. Is that how you would characterize this? And if not, how would you?
I wouldn't necessarily characterize it as that, but what I will say is that we have the most lethal fighting force this world has ever seen. The United States is able to support Ukraine in its war against Russia and support Israel in its defense and after the horrific attack on October 7th. So we feel very confident that we can do both. And we are confident in also our ability, our capabilities. Earlier, your reporter mentioned the 26th MU, the Marine Expeditionary Unit that is in the region. Really there to help bolster deterrence. Again, we are the most lethal fighting force the world has seen. And so that's why we are going to continue to urge a strong message of deterrence. That's why you're seeing two carrier strike groups in the region. And that's why you're seeing the Secretary Austin here and across the department and the White House continue to the message to those who want to seek to widen this conflict. Do not do that. And I think we're sending a pretty strong message.
Sabrina, it's clear that the administration is worried on a lot of fronts, including reports that it is readying plans for mass evacuations if the Gaza war escalates. What's the U.S. military's role there? What would that look like?
Well, if that were to ever happen, if that does happen, the U.S. military, of course, would be there to support the State Department in whatever it needs to help get U.S. citizens out safely and to provide security. But again, we're not there yet. We're hoping that we can continue to monitor the situation, what's happening on the ground. What we're really focused on is sending a clear message to Iran and also making sure that Israel has what it needs in their fight right now. The Secretary has been having near daily conversations with Minister Gallup in Israel about their potential ground incursion and also making sure that innocent lives, civilian lives are protected, that is a priority for any type of event that might occur in the next few days.
It's been reported by many that we're urging Israel to delay the ground incursion into Gaza. Is that true?
I would say we are the IDF is one of the most capable militaries in the world. We are providing our support. We are providing our assistance. It's really up to them to decide when they move forward with any type of incursion. That's not really our place to say.
But if the
we are continuing to advise.
If the U.S. had an option here, does the United States Pentagon, does the United States government believe that a delay into Gaza is better or not?
Again, that's really up for the Israelis to make that decision. We are providing and assisting them and providing security assistance for them for what they might need. We are counseling them. We are hearing from them as well. Our concern and our constant communication with them through Minister Gallant and others is to ensure that innocent civilians are, in fact, safe and protected, and that Israel really does uphold the law of war.
One of the things that's been happening is that Hamas has been talking to Qatar in order to, I guess, to figure out a way, decide which hostages are going to be released 2 by 2. But the main leadership of Hamas lives in luxury in Qatar, in Doha. Is there any reason that the Pentagon feels that Qatar shouldn't be declared a state sponsor of terror if Hamas leadership is allowed to continue to live there?
Look, we are encouraged by the conversations that continue to happen with hostages being released. You saw 2 Americans over the weekend, and then 2 more just, I believe, yesterday. We have partners and allies in the region that are continuing to work to pressure Hamas to release these hostages. But again, these hostages should never be held hostage in the first place. Again, we work with Qatar on a range of issues. They are continuing to be an ally here in working to ensure that hostages are released. We support that, and I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, so you mentioned Iran 2 answers ago. We heard about the reporting about drones and missile attacks at various U.S. bases throughout the Middle East. If you believe Iran is behind that, why are we not striking back?
We believe that Iran is no question behind many of the proxy groups that have attacked our forces in Iraq and in Syria. And then I think, as you were referencing, the USS Carney that was in the Red Sea. Again, I'm not going to forecast here how we are going to respond. We choose to respond at the time that we are ready to. Bill, I will reiterate, we are one of the most lethal fighting forces the world has ever seen. Iran knows that. And while they continue to launch these attacks on our U.S. forces, it is our decision at our time when we choose to respond to that.
Okay, but to date, no action has been taken on behalf of the U.S. military, the greatest fighting force the world has ever seen.
Well, again, we are very mindful here that we do not want to see this widen to a regional conflict. And we are also very strategic on when and if we choose to respond. You saw the USS Carney engage in cruise missiles that were heading toward the ship. You saw the Carney engage and fight and shoot those down. You've seen our U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria continue to do the same. But again, I'm not going to get ahead of any decision that the president, that the secretary makes when we choose to decide on a response.
One of the things that you've come on to talk to us about are these holds that Senator Tommy Tuberville has held on military promotions because of abortion policy. And the concern had been about readiness from the Pentagon, saying that we need to make sure we have this. Those holds are not ended. I know that they've tried to move a few through the Senate. Is this continuing to be a problem for the Pentagon? Would you be willing to revisit that policy decision so that those holds could be lifted?
Absolutely. This is a huge problem for the Pentagon. It certainly strikes to our readiness as well. Right now we have an acting person in both leading the Navy and the Air Force. We have over 270 nominees that are outstanding to be confirmed, including the defense attaché for Israel and Iraq. So these are incredibly important positions at a time when, this is an incredibly hard and difficult time in the Middle East. And also you have Russia continuing its war of aggression on Ukraine. And so we do need our Senate confirmed nominees in place as soon as possible.
Oh, just one last question here, Sabrina. I really appreciate your time today. A lot to cover, and that's pretty obvious from our conversation. We're getting word from our correspondent in Tel Aviv that Senator Richard Blumenthal, the Democrat from Connecticut, said that Iran gave Hamas the, quote, green light to carry out that massacre on the morning of October 7th. Is the senator right on that?
Look, I'm not going to speak to intelligence, but what is very clear, there is a direct connection between Iran and Hamas. How much Iran knew about the attack that Hamas was going to launch on October 7th, I think we're still doing our own analysis of that. But there is no question there is a clear thread between the two. We know that Iran continues to train, equip, financially support Hamas in its endeavors in Gaza. And so I think that's certainly a clear link to draw there.
Sabrina Singh, the deputy spokesperson at the Pentagon, thank you for your time this morning. We know you're busy. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.